I always.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, Pan-African Daily TV fans and followers and family and the entire community. We are live tonight to continue the part 2 of the conversation from Nkrumah to Mahama and actually begin to learn about the heroes of the African liberation movement and also the theory of Pan-Africanism according to His Excellency, late Dr. Osagyefo Nkrumah. I want to thank, I want to thank Professor James Small for joining us again in class with this lecture today. And we want to round up the conversation as we started the legacy of Nkrumah. When we complete that, then we're going to take on the next president in the person of Patrice Lumumba or Thomas Sankara, whatever, whichever pattern we're going to follow. So I truly want to salute all of you that are connected here. I know some of you were already here long time ago, waiting since 30 minutes. Thank you so much for joining. And please, when you join, you know what to do. So click the link and share and invite one another, and as we actually, So I want to welcome you officially, Professor James Moore. How are you doing?
I am doing fine. If I have to leave a little early today, like I'm the grandfather, right?
Yes, we do understand, Prof.
Pick up those babies from the bus. It's so cold, I can't let them walk. I got to drive down the driveway, put them in a warm car, and bring my babies in the house.
Wonderful. It's okay. That's fine. I think also the second part is not going to be that much. President, you're living in the United States of America, and you, the American citizens, you just voted in the 47th president for the second time, not consequential like the others. And it is actually been said this is the second president that had to, serve 4 terms and then got interrupted and then was voted again. So he was sworn in. So congratulations to the people of the United States of America for this democratically, as they would actually say, is put elected a president. So yeah, what is your feedback on that?
Well, President Trump is the president of the United States. The people of the United States, the majority, voted for him to be their president. Somebody had to win the election. One would have wanted to be their candidate. The other would have wanted to be their candidate. In this case, the Republican Party, similar to what happened in Ghana, not only won the presidency, but they won control of Congress. So Mr. Trump have a very strong foundation. But let's be clear. I'm neither intimidated nor put in fear by Mr. Trump being president of the United States. Mr. Trump being the president of the United States doesn't determine the destiny of Africa, nor the destiny of African people anywhere in the world. We alone will make that determination. Sometimes we waste too much time wondering what the other man is going to do. I'm interested to the degree that our decisions and diplomacy makes sense. But Mr. Trump will do, as a governor of America, what the banks and the corporate structure tells him to do. like they will tell any president of America. They will tell them, we will send our think tank to write the policy, to write the trade agreements, and we will present them to you. We will have our speech writers write your speech, and you will give them well, as though you wrote it yourself. We must be mindful that what we are seeing on the stage, especially in America, is an actor writing speeches, reading speeches they didn't write, implementing policy they never developed, policies that was developed by the corporate structures and the multinational corporations, the banking system, the petroleum conglomerates, the agri conglomerates, the pharmaceutical conglomerates, the weapon industrial complex. These are the people who will write the policy that Mr. Trump will carry out. He will articulate it in a way that impresses the poor working class whites, particularly, and the poor working class Hispanic male, because that's his predominant base. But he will only carry out the policy he's told to carry out. So let's be clear about that. Ghana has more of a democracy than America. Malcolm used to say America was not a democracy, it was a hypocrisy, pretending to be a democracy. I remember President Dwight David Eisenhower when he was leaving office, and I remember him because I was in high school, I was a senior, and I had to read his last speech for my class. And the title of his departing speech, Dwight David Eisenhower, President of the United States, was Beware of the Military Industrial Complex. That was his warning to his country. Well, that military industrial complex is one of the multinationals that run the American government today, along with the banking system in America. We hear all the time in America about the Federal Reserve and the feds and the feds. That's not a part of the American government, you know. There's nothing in the American government called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a group of private banks, both national and international, that runs the finances of America. So who's the president? Let's be real. History erases the mystery. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What African people's got to do is take advantage of whatever opportunities that Mr. Trump presents our way to build Africa. All of his policies is not negative. Some of them are very good policies. I've studied him. Some of them will be very good for America. And he has a right to make America great again. We need to make Africa great again.
Absolutely.
You know, he has a right to say America first. We need to make Africa first. You know, sometimes the media, because remember, media is controlled by certain corporate interests, and media is controlled by certain ethnic interests. And so media tells us what to think of a person. Media tells us who the person is. But we've got to go beyond media to see. Remember I told you before, all content have what? Intent.
Yes.
We've heard the content from Mr. Trump's mouth. What is the intent? You know, and so I think he's going to be a strong president. No, we will not agree with all of his policies towards America. We will not agree, some of us, with all of his policies towards Africa. But what I do agree with, that Africans will have to go to the UN and meet with the Americans, as all other nations do. Africans will have to go to the trade forums and meet with the Americans like all other nations do. That we should be prepared to go to the forums, the trade agreement meetings, to the United Nations, to the World Bank. We need to go there representing the best interests of Africa. And Africa alone. We need to go there to make sure that the interests of Africa is not sabotaged by any other nation, even those who look like us. And so I tell Mr. Trump, congratulations, have a successful presidency. I tell Africans, let's get on about Africa's business. Our business is not to run America. Our business is not to even judge America. Our business is to make sure Africa is protected. Our business is to make sure Africa is growing economically. Our business is to restore African culture as the dominant culture in Africa and be free of the colonial and neo-colonial mental domination of our people. Our business is to construct the kind of military that is the people's militia plus the people's army that can protect our nation from any invasions coming from anybody, whether the West want to call their surrogates terrorists or whether they want to take credit for creating the terrorists that they've placed in Africa. We must defend ourselves against them. And so let's build the Africa we said we want to see. And it does not matter who's the president of the United States. Our faith is not dependent on the United States. It is not dependent on France. It is not dependent on the UK. Our faith, our destiny is dependent on us, African people worldwide, and the Africans on the continent particularly, because you're the guardian of the greatest wealth in the history of the world. And you can eradicate poverty like this if we put the right leadership in government. And so yesterday, Mr. Trump was sworn in, and he had a very lovely celebration. Matter of fact, and one of the most beautiful presentation was done by the black band, the African band from Mississippi. They tore the house down. Even Mr. Trump had to stand up and applaud him. His whole party had to stand up and applaud. When the Africans stepped in the room, life came to the room. I don't know if anybody saw it, but that band from Mississippi, those African kids, they lit it up like we always light up the world. So my faith is in African people. I don't care who's the president of the United States. It doesn't faze me. And it shouldn't faze any African, because we will meet whomever is the president of any nation with the interests of Africa as our breastplate. Okay.
Thank you.
With the best of Africa as our crown. And so there we go. Freedom or death. Always remember that.
Freedom and life. Yes.
No, something else happened yesterday.
Okay.
It was the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Absolute. Yes.
One of the greatest leaders we've ever had, whether we agreed with his tactics of nonviolence or not. It was one of the most successful political strategy in the history of any country. It brought in most of the civil rights and the human rights that African Americans and all Africans who are now migrating here is able to enjoy. Okay. No other people had ever waged a battle without arms and achieved what he achieved. The only one that can come close is India. But even though India took control, the people, the African people, the black people, the impoverished people of India was no better off under the Hindus than they were under the British colonialists. But Dr. King went beyond that, and he created the Civil Rights Bill in America. He created the Voting Rights Bill in America. He created what they call affirmative action, but giving people true opportunity without discrimination. His leadership led us to that. America would be a swamp politically where human and civil rights is concerned if it was not for the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King. And what's so important, if you would allow me, I want to read some excerpts from one of his speeches. Not just any speech, though. This speech he wrote, and he gave as a sermon at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. 1 week after returning from Ghana, where he was with Kwame Nkrumah for Nkrumah's inauguration as the first president of Ghana. And so he came back to America and he wrote a speech about Ghana. And it's so telling what this man wrote. This is before Malcolm X. Malcolm X hasn't been to Ghana yet. This is Dr. Martin Luther King in 1957 writing a speech. So I'd like to read a little bit of that speech. I think people would learn something. I'm starting somewhere in the middle. He said, if there had not been Gandhi in India, with all of his noble followers, India would have never been free. If there had not been an Nkrumah and his followers in Ghana, Ghana would still be a British colony. If there had not been abolitionists in America, both Negro and white, we might still stand today in the dungeons of slavery. And so he went on. He's talking about Ghana. He's trying to explain to the people what he learned from being in Ghana. And he said, and then, because there have been in every period, there are always those people in every period of human history who don't mind getting their necks cut off, who don't mind being persecuted and discriminated and kicked about, because they know that freedom is never given. Freedom is never given out, but it comes through the persistence and the continual agitation and revolt on the part of those who are caught in the system of oppression. And he says, Ghana teaches us that. This is him in 1957. He goes further. He says, there's another thing that Ghana reminds us. I'm coming to the conclusion now, he's saying about his speech. Ghana reminds us that freedom never comes on a silver platter. It's never easy. Ghana reminds us that whenever we break out from Egypt, he's using Egypt as the metaphor of oppressive system because he's a minister. He says, you better get ready for a stiff back, meaning to be strong. You better get ready for some homes to be bombed. You better get ready for some churches to be bombed. You better get ready for a lot of nasty things, excuse me, to be said about you because you're getting out of oppression. And whenever you break or loose from oppression, the initial response of the oppressor is bitterness. It never comes with ease. It comes only through the hardness and the persistence of life. Ghana reminds us of that. You better get ready to go to prison. When I look out and I saw the prime minister there with his prison cap on that night, that reminded me of the fact that freedom never comes easy. It comes through hard labor and it comes through toil. It comes through hours of despair and disappointment. Then he said, yes, Ghana taught us that. Then I just want to read this concluding piece because we see this happening now. Well, first he said, after Nkrumah had made his final speech that night, it was about 12:30, and he said, we walked away, and we could hear little children, 6 years old, and old people, 80 and 90 years old, walk in the streets in Accra, crying, freedom, freedom, freedom. And he concludes the speech by saying, and also, Nkrumah plans to work towards the whole problem of increasing the cultural standards of his country. And he said there was a large percentage who was still illiterate, but Nkrumah was going to wipe away the illiteracy. And then he goes on and says, right there is a wilderness ahead when you break away from your slave master that you face with difficulties because they make it difficult for you. But he's reaching out, and this is where the Pan-Africanism of Dr. King comes in. He said, yes, there's a wilderness ahead, though it is my hope that even the people from America will go to Africa as immigrants, right there to be to the Gold Coast, to Ghana, the land to lend their technical assistance, for there is great need and riches there. There are rich opportunities there. right now is the time that American Negroes can lend their technical assistance to the growing of a new nation. I was very happy to see already there were other African Americans that had come to Ghana with Nkrumah, and he named some of them. And he says, I'm sure that going over to make, that we should go over to make for the growth of the new nation. And Nkrumah made it very clear to me that he would welcome any person coming there as an immigrant and to live there. Now, don't think that because you have 5 million people there that this is a small nation. Ghana will grow, just as America started out with a smaller population than Ghana did, and America has grown. But the African Americans must go back to Ghana and help grow Ghana and help watch the dream that Nkrumah and his followers made such great sacrifice for come into being. And this is Dr. Martin Luther King in 1957. And many don't realize he had a viewpoint, that he was there in Ghana, that he met with Nkrumah and others, you know. So we wish him happy birthday yesterday. He was one of the great African leaders. And I read that to let people know he wasn't just an American leader. And he didn't just talk about America's progress. That in 1957, at the beginning of his ministry, he's also interested in Africa's freedom and Africa's progress. And even then, he's talked about what we're seeing happening now, with so many diasporans going to Ghana, becoming citizens, living there, opening businesses. He was asking for that in 1957. And so we can think about his speech in America where he said he had a dream. That was a nice speech. But that wasn't even his original speech. The I Have a Dream was an ad-lib thing he did at the end of his speech because Mahalia Jackson had heard him do a sermon called I Have a Dream and said, Martin, tell him about the dream. So he was getting ready to finish the speech. So he added that. So the Europeans decided to name the speech the I Have a Dream speech. But the speech was about reparations. The speech was about economic deprivation. The speech was called The Promise That America Did Not Keep. In that speech, he said, America gave us a check that has come back insufficient funds. See, they don't talk about that part of the speech. And in his last speech, Dr. King, they tell you about the last paragraph where he says, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, and I fear no man. I want to have longevity. I want to live a long life. But he realized that wasn't possible because they had already told him, we're going to assassinate you. And he knew they would kill him soon. They killed him the next day. But he didn't run. He said, but I'm not afraid. He knew his time had come. But here's what he told his people in the paragraph before that. Before he told them, I'm not afraid. Before he told them, I'm going to die. He told them, you need to go out and boycott. Unite first. Unity is one of the greatest tools, he told them. That's our Pan-Africanism. Then he says, go out and boycott Coca-Cola because they won't support our struggle. Go out and boycott the main white banks. Move all your money to Black and African banks, he told them. Yes, in that same speech. He said, go boycott these bread companies. They won't support our struggle. Anybody that don't support our struggle, let's not give them our money. Put your money into building Black economies, he told them the day before he died. So let's not go back to the day he was born in 63. He was a growing leader then. When he dies in 68, he gave you his last message. He gave you Pan-Africanism, he gave you unity, and he gave you the economic boycott of your enemy if that enemy would use these corporations against you. And those tools will still work today, anywhere in the world, because the African peoples of the world are some of the wealthiest peoples in the world. Who is more wealthy than the upper class of Nigeria, of Ghana, Tanzania, Botswana, and so forth and so on, the United States, Brazil? If we took that wealth and tell the corporate structure of the Western world, if you're going to continue to support colonialism and imperialism over the freedom my people, then we will withdraw. We will withdraw our economic support of you. And you cannot survive without the economic support of the Africans, both on and off the continent. We need to know, like God told David in the Bible, when he was confronted with the big giant, Goliath. And David thought he was so small and the imperialists of the world was so big. And God asked him a simple question: what's in your hand, little boy? And he had a stone and a slingshot. And with his simple little stone, our stone is our economic power. Our stone is our natural resources. And when we use that stone in the right way, Goliath will fall. So we need to learn from history. And we need to learn from our great teachers. They use metaphor. Metaphor is a good way to teach. Metaphor, Africa invented the metaphor and the folklore and the allegory to teach concepts, ideas, and principles. Pan-Africanism isn't just a term. Pan-Africanism isn't just a phrase. Pan-Africanism is a concept, an idea, and a set of principles about unity. Uniting economically, uniting politically, uniting culturally, uniting spiritually for the good of Africa and for the good of humanity. Because Africa has never had a movement that was anti-humanity. Africa's fundamental culture is based on the human uplift and development of mankind.
Mm.
So no one can put us in that negative history that we don't belong there. Others may have put themselves there, but that has not been the history of African people. So we don't have to apologize when we stand up against tyranny, because our history gives our identity. And so back to our beautiful Nkrumah. We talked about all of the great things. One other thing Dr. King said in the last paragraph of the speech, he said he was talking to Nkrumah that night. And Nkrumah said to him that I cannot build this country on a one industry product. He was talking about the cocoa, which was bringing in most of the money at the time. And he says, I've got to rapidly industrialize in order to have the kind of diverse economy that would allow us to spread the wealth to the masses of the people. And we talked about he certainly did that. We saw where he was building his Air Force. We saw the airline come into being. We saw the television factories. We saw the shoe factories. We saw the refrigeration factories. We saw the industrialization coming. We saw the building of wonderful roads and freeways to connect the different regions of the country. So the industrialization, even to the point that he was trying to develop and had developed atomic energy in order to provide the electricity for the country. He wasn't trying to build no bombs or any of these foolish things that others do. He thought that this would allow him, this is before there's an Akatumbo Dam.
Mm-hmm.
This would allow them to provide the energy Ghana needed so it could be free and independent to industrialize itself. And even today, the industrialization of Africa lags so far behind the rest of the world. So our leaders have to take that lesson from Nkrumah. Industrialization with indigenous industrial concepts to develop the new Africa that we want to see. We can do it. We see in Burkina Faso what that young president Ibrahim have managed to do in 2 years with the agricultural sector of Burkina Faso. Is outrunning everybody in the continent of Africa. And he has a lot less resources than anybody on the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But he's turned around the agricultural sector and he's able to feed his people. He's developed plants, facilities to can and preserve the products that the people need to get off of the shelf in the stores, in the markets of Burkina Faso. So Nkrumah has been and still is a light to the African world. And today we have a new president in Ghana, but the president before, Nana Akufo-Addo, got a lot of criticism for a lot of things. He made some bad choices, I agree. His position on Burkina Faso was certainly a terrible choice. His getting in bed with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund without understanding the predatory nature of those financial organizations have bankrupted the country nearly. But Muhammad and the NDC will bring it back. We're totally confident of that. But there were some things that, even though he would speak on one hand of his dislike for Nkrumah because of the historical relationship between his father and other members of the Big Six and Nkrumah. But on the other hand, we will see him praising Nkrumah and trying to implement as much of Nkrumah's policy as he could, especially in the last year. And so we will watch this new government of the NDC and President Muhammad, who certainly have started out on the right foot to try and break the ties with colonial militarism, the American military bases and other things, to heal the relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso, which was a very good relationship under Sankara and President Rawlings. And I think it's time that he, who is now heading the party of President Rawlings, to take it back to a very positive relationship between Burkina Faso and Ghana, so that economically Ghana can learn from Burkina Faso and Burkina Faso can learn from Ghana and how to structure stable and strong government that can't be overthrown easily by outsiders with just a few people coming in and disrupting the social order. I think the new government in Ghana is on a very good footing, because when we go back to Jerry Rawlings, who have some who love him and some who didn't. But in 1979, I think, was the first coup d'etat, and I spoke to President Rawlings. We were relatively good friends. And he didn't pull that first coup d'etat. The young men did, and then they called him forth to be the leader. He was not originally the leader. And so this young man would go to court and said, let my people go. Arrest me and execute me. He was prepared for that. And his young soldiers would come and break him out of prison. All right. And he would lead a new coup. First it was a coup for up, and then he would lead the coup against Lehman, because he felt that the government was not going in the right direction. They felt, and this wasn't just a Rawlings, this is the young people of Ghana. Jerry Rawlings was Ibrahim of Burkina Faso for his day. And he led Ghana to this democratic process that is now in. It was Rawlings who restored the integrity of Nkrumah, whether people like it or not. He restores the integrity of Nkrumah. He's the only president we know in the world who came into leadership through a coup d'etat and then turned the government over to a democratic electoral process, and then put time limits on himself and stepped down and never tried to come back. No one in the world has ever done that. And Ghana ought to be grateful and thankful for what those young people in the NDC was able to do under the leadership of Rawlings. And I think Muhammad is a child of that leadership. Muhammad is one of the students of Jerry Rawlings. Jerry Rawlings, in many, many ways, was a student of Nkrumah. We talked about it a lot. And I used to take whole groups to his house, bring a whole tour to Ghana, and he would let all of us in. And he would take pictures with every one of the people, 20, 30, he would take pictures with them. Then he would come out on the steps and he would take a group picture with us. Very learned man, a very Pan-Africanist at heart, a Ghana patriot like none you ever want to see. The only person that reminds me of him in terms of his love for Ghana and the patriotism is Nkrumah himself. So I think when Nkrumah left us, and the legacy that Muhammad has is an understanding of why you love Africa. Not just saying I'm a Pan-Africanist, but there's an understanding. Why do I love Africa? Because Africa gave the world the sense of humanity. We humanized the world. And the rest of that was taken away by the colonizers after the Berlin Conference and the invaders and the enslavers. And so our fight has been to restore the human integrity of Africa as political systems that will serve the interests of the people in that particular territory. And I think Ghana is a major example of stability, how you can use democracy, not hypocrisy, but how you can use democracy to lead a people forward. There's been a lot of trials in Ghana, and Ghana has fallen to its knees, but Ghana has never fallen on its face. It has never fallen on its face. And I think because the leaders, many of them have always had Nkrumah to reach back and grab a hold of Nkrumah, And whenever they're falling, they return to Nkrumah. Because Nkrumah, not just by himself, he was the leader of a people who inspired him, who entrusted him with their principles, their aspirations, and their dreams, and their ideas, and they help him implement it to create the Ghana that has grown into the Ghana we know today. And so we can put all the dates, well, on this date he did this, on this date he did that. But what he really did, he restored the human integrity of Africa. Because remember, he doesn't stand alone. Patrice Lumumba is coming there to be tutored. Jomo Kenyatta is also visiting there. Every one of the revolutionary leaders out of South Africa, out of Southern Africa, out of East Africa, came to Nkrumah. And Nkrumah, what made many middle-class, upper-class Ghanaians unhappy, because Nkrumah used much of the wealth of Ghana to finance the liberation movements of Southern Africa without hesitation, to finance Guinea, to finance Lumumba, to finance the ANC and the PAC as they were being given birth to. These leaders are all coming to Ghana. Many of them are attending the Achimota School, where so many of Ghana's great leader has come out of. And so Nkrumah made that possible. He made it possible for people to grab a hold of these ideas of Pan-Africanism and try to implement it in the communities they came from across Africa. There's no government in Africa today that can say, upon my independence, Nkrumah was not a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, today awaiting Ghana, watching the move of this new government to see whether the economic stability can be restored. Of course, the West is going to fight you, but I think we have a better hand today to play in international diplomacy than we've ever had. We've got Senegal standing up strongly. We've got Chad standing up strong. We've got Nigeria, we got Mali, we got Burkina Faso standing in the center. We've got Ghana that has come as an ally strongly towards them. And I've seen some moves from some others. I was shocked at some of the moves I'm seeing coming from Ivory Coast, despite the relationship the French have there. But we have to also be clear that the West is not going to give up Africa this easy. They're going to fight us. And that's what Dr. King was saying, that when you open this door to freedom, You still have a wilderness to go through. You got to get through the wilderness. And the wilderness is the imperialism and the colonialism that don't want to sit down to a table with us and make a fair trade agreement, as they do with other parts of the world. And we have to make clear, if the trade agreement don't give the advantage to the African when it comes to the African resources, you have no trade agreement. That's simple. Why give away your wealth when you're not getting anything in return? Close the door and learn how to bring it in. And I think we saw the former president of Tanzania, do an extraordinary job before his life ended in making the colonialists repatriate the capital and the gold wealth that had been taken away from Tanzania. We saw how well he used it to build the infrastructure of Tanzania, the roads, the bridges, the schools, the hospital. We are seeing the same thing now happening in the Sahel, with the Sahel states. And so we know it could be done. We know it could be done. And let's not forget Zimbabwe. The West vilified Mugabe. But Mugabe is one of those people who took his leadership tones from Kwame Nkrumah. They vilified Mugabe in Zimbabwe because they wanted to be free. And so many of Africa states, because of their weakness, went along with the sanctioning of Zimbabwe, which was one of the most illegal sanction, if sanction in any form is legal, in the world. But African states have to make clear, no one can sanction an African state without the African states sitting down with their brother, sister state and making that determination together. And we should never, ever again go along with Western sanctions against any African state. The West does not have the moral integrity to sanction an African state. So, what can we say? It all comes down to basics. We got to provide for our people food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. Basic. But that's not just basic, that's essential. That's essential. We could talk all of the big political words and we can use the biggest vocabulary in the world and we can travel anywhere in the world. But if you cannot provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for your people, you are not their leader. You do not deserve to hold an office. Food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. That is the purpose of a government. That is why the collective have come together. And you can't do that unless you are clear that you're going to get control of the economics, the politics, and the culture where you live. And you got to be clear. These are simple steps, but Nkrumah made it very clear. These are the things you have to do. If you can't control economic, politics, and culture in the land you live in, if you can't control the resources, and if you can't determine the value of your resources, why are you in a leadership position? And we see this business where we heard, and I've seen it on the internet and on the news strips, certain Asian peoples, I won't call their name, in certain African countries taking over land. No, land, labor, and resources belong to the people of that land. You do not come into another people's land and decide you're going to pick up arms to take control of their land. People determine. And what I love about Africa is that most people say, oh, Africans are selling the land. No, they're not. Most of the land in Africa is collectively owned. It can't be sold to anybody. It can be leased. But the West is coming in with these new technologies and contracts to try to tie you into 100-year and 200-year lease, and then they'll say they bought it. You haven't bought it. And the option, if you have not behaved the way the leasee, agreed you would, they can take their land back. That's international protocol. But we have to get out of the trap of Western protocols and how things happen. Western legalisms was designed for your oppression. This legal system was not designed for your freedom. Now, if you want to be free, you must master the Western system to make sure it cannot be used to destroy you. And then you must master the African system to make sure that it can save you. Now, it's really that simple. This thing we're talking about is not complex. It's that we are allowing very simple, uninformed people to become our leaders. See, this concept, let's come at this concept they call democracy. What they're trying to say, electoral politics is democracy. It could be, but if the electoral politics is controlled and manipulated by outside nations, then that's not democracy. When you can buy the person put in the office, when you can kill your way to putting people in office, that's not democracy. When Western money and corporate money can come in and override the African people who are struggling to elect their officials, that's not democracy. Let's decide what democracy is for us. And let's use our African democratic methodology for arriving at our governmental structures that will serve to provide the food, the clothing, the shelter, the safety, and the security that the people of those nations demand and deserve. That's what Nkrumah was trying to do, and that's what he did for Ghana. It frightened the West so that he had created such a model so quickly that if his model could be followed, all of the continent would have long been free. We wouldn't need to have a Pan-African daily TV. So they destroyed the model, or tried to destroy the model, but you can't destroy ideas. And Nkrumah was ideas of freedom. And Nkrumah was ideas of how to restore African integrity in governance. So
wonderful. Professor James, would you mind if I take a couple of questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll be opening up the lines. I just text you the our WhatsApp number, +1502 277 2094. So you can call us direct in the studio to ask your question. Or you can also type in your question in the chat, and Professor James is actually reading or will bring it to his attention. So while we're waiting, because I saw a lot of people requesting to call.
Which is good.
Professor, another question as we're rounding up the Nkrumah that we gathered, like a feedback, like what was the cause of why would Africans actually not follow a leader as him to protect his life, to protect his legacy? Why is it that we chose, or the African people chose to be distracted or derailed?
It's called, some people simply call it mental slavery, but I'd like to put it in another context. It's called colonial socialization process, where your history and your ancestors' experience have been devalued to the point that you denigrate your own ancestors' tradition. And you are taught through that socialization is how you get your values, your interests, and your principles. So if the colonizer is giving you your values, your interests, and your principles, that's called socialization. Then you become the proponent of the colonizer's values, interests, and principles. And so when an Nkrumah comes along and threatens the colonizers' values, interests, and principles, you're the first one to step forward and defend the colonizers' values, interests, and principles, even to the point of assassinating or overthrowing, like we did with Patrice Lumumba, like we did with Sankara, and the overthrowing like we did with Nkrumah, and so many others. And so if we, you've heard me say a lot on this program, history erases the mystery.
Mm.
Now, it sounds like just cliche. Oh, small just got a little ditty. History erases the mystery. No,
Absolute. Mm-hmm.
history will give you clarity on the direction in which you must move in order to reestablish yourself as the authority of your destiny as a people. Now, if you're not in charge of your destiny, then someone else is. And that someone is usually your oppressor, your colonizer, your neo-colonizer, your imperialist, because they want the wealth in the earth that you live on to run their industrial societies. And they're not willing to sit down at a table and negotiate a fair trade agreement with you. So they use your ignorance of your culture. Because when they came in the Berlin Conference, after the Berlin Conference in 1885, they conquered Africa militarily. What should have been called the First World War occurred after the Berlin Conference. Every military army in Europe, including the Americans who financed most of it, invaded every corner of Africa, killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of our people. And they don't even call it a war. Germany invaded with its military. France invaded with its military. England invaded with its military. Poland invaded with its military. Belgium invaded with its military. Holland invaded with its military. They all came and they conquered us militarily. And they don't even call it a war. Do you understand me? If the question want to really get answered, and then they lie to you once they've dominated you physically. Now they have to dominate you mentally, so they destroy your indigenous education system and they put in place their education system to instruct and inform you of who they want you to be and how they want you to think. They destroy your indigenous spiritual and religious system and bring in their religious system to teach you ethics and morals that favors and support the position of imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism. This is what occurs. So they'll tell you a history of South Africa, but they'll never mention General Bambata of the Zulu Nation. They'll tell you a history of South Africa, but they'll never mention General Setshwayo, King Setshwayo, or the defeats that they gave to the British Army. They'll tell you your history, but they won't tell you the history of the Sudan and Muhammad Ahmed and the destruction he gave to both the Egyptian and the British Army, and even took the life of the most prized general in Britain at that time, and that was the precious General Gordon. We won many of those battles. We got defeated because of gun technology, not because of white people being smart. We did not have gun technology. And we got technologically outgunned. And so here we are, the result of that. But if you don't know history, if you don't know what happened after the Berlin Conference, it isn't like we think, oh, they came in and said, oh, we come to civilize you black people. That's what they tell us. So we send our preachers, we send our missionaries, and they build you some churches. We had our own religion when you came. We had our own way of worshiping the divine. We had our own way of knowing how our family should be structured. We had our own way of what a marriage meant. We have our own way. I'll show you an example. In Europe, everyone knows that the laws of nature is such that for every one male child born, 3 female is born, even today. What Europe did with its surplus women was made them prostitutes. What Africa did with its surplus women was made them wives and mothers and heads of family in our polygamy structure. Now, which one would you want? Study history. Erase the mystery. Know your ancestors, because that's who you are. You're not going to go forward if you're worshiping the ancestors of the person who murdered your ancestors. That just doesn't make any common sense, people. You're not going to go forward if you think you can adopt the ways of those who raped your mother and mutilated your father. You're not going to go forward. So, yes, we can say that a lot of technology we've gotten from the West. Yes, we have. But if you were to examine the technology that built England, if you were to examine the technology that built France, if you were to examine the technology that built America, 75% of it came from the enslaved Africans they took from the continent. Just look at the history. Every major inventions in the West came from Africa. We built Europe, and any good European scholar will tell you, many of them are saying this every day now. So no, it's a question of being informed. It is a question of knowing your history, the history. How did we get in this situation? What is the cause of this situation? How do we get out of this situation? I hope that's enough of an answer to that question. And it means we have to restore an educational process, a socialization process that re-Africanized our minds. And that means the colonial curricula throughout the schools in Africa need to be thrown in a pot and burned to ashes, and new African curricula written. And some says, oh, what about the math and the science? We gave the world the math and the science. We didn't need Europe to bring that to us. That's not what they came for. They came to steal the gold. They came to steal the manganese. They came to steal the cocoa. They came to steal the diamond. Okay, let's be clear on that. That's why they came. Nobody came to civilize you because you were the only civilized people in the world. You were not invading anybody's country, murdering their people, trying to civilize them. You were in Africa having a nice time being human. Somebody else came with that foolishness. So just let's be real. Socialization,
Professor,
values, your interests, and your principles. Never forget that term.
thank you very much, Prof. We have a caller on the line and a question for you. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, make it as quickly as I can. So my first question is, well, I have two questions, but I'll get to the first one. The first question is this. There was some news that came out yesterday. I just wanted to get Professor James Small's opinion on this. It's about a semi-guide in Mali. I'll just quickly read you this. It's not going to take that long. So it says, I want to get your opinion on this. The Malian leader, General Assimi Goïta, has announced the creation of a military factory to manufacture weapons and ammunition aiming to address the nation's security challenges. The facility will handle modern basic assembly, producing both individual and collective weapons, and expanding ammunition and explosives production for civilian and military use. This initiative seeks to enhance the Army's capacity to counter persistent militant attacks from groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS in northern and central Mali. So that's the first question I have. The second question I have is just basically, I wanted to get Professor James Small's opinion on Africans collectively You know, just me listening to his live and him talking about freedom and everything like that. I just wanted to ask him himself, does he think that Africans want to be free bad enough? And I say that because I don't like to use athletes or even like certain people as an example. But if you look, I'll use like Malcolm X or maybe like Malcolm X as an example, where he was able to conquer himself in order to go through the journey that he went through, and because of his, you know, burning desire to want to change his circumstances and also change his people's circumstances, and he didn't care what pain he had to go through in order to accomplish it. So my second question is basically, with African people, do they have that burning desire that no matter what is on their path of freedom, do they have that burning desire to want to succeed, to change their circumstances bad enough? So yeah, that's my second question, and that's all I have to say.
Second question.
So yeah, thank you, Professor James Smalls. Thank you, Susan Tata. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much, brother.
Well, the second question first. Emeka Brown, the Big Way, Patrice Lumumba, Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah,
Thomas Sankara.
We can name 1,000 African leaders before Malcolm, during Malcolm, and since Malcolm that stood up just like Malcolm, and even more profoundly so. So of course, we want to be free, but we have to understand there's a war, there's a mental war going on. The enemy didn't use physical conquest. He brought in his religion and his educational system, and he took control of how we think of who we are, where we are, and began to inform you on who you should see yourself to be, who you are, where you are. We have to undo that. Stephen Biko, a beautiful baby who they murdered, said to us before they murdered him, if he had said nothing else, he said the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Malcolm X, Emeka Brown, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Winnie Mandela, they were able to get their mind out of the hands of the oppressed, not by themselves. Malcolm X didn't just become Malcolm X because he wanted to. Malcolm X had a family. I'm a part of that family. I lived in that family. You know, I'm his successor over the mosque when he's assassinated. Malcolm X had a family. His sister who was raising him, Ella, was a Pan-Africanist and a nationalist. His father was a Goliath and a Pan-Africanist. His mother from Grenada was a Goliath and a Pan-Africanist. His grandfather, his great-grandfather, was an abolitionist who was murdered by the Confederacy just at the beginning of the Civil War. They hung Malcolm X's great-grandmother, and while she was pregnant, and his great-grandfather killed all the people who hung his wife. They killed him in the end. So Malcolm X come from a lineage of resistance, and he still got lost in the negative socialization of American mind control. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam and his brothers and sisters who had become a part of that organization and was building it, helped him to find a path to freedom so that he had a pathway to restore himself and began to learn about Africa and African history and African culture and the resistance of his own family. So he didn't do that by himself. Knowledge of self did that. And he tells you this all the time. Knowledge of self means knowledge of the history of your people, knowledge of your resistance. How many of our young girls today really know? And she just left Winnie Mandela. Now, I love Big Sister Winnie, and I had a chance to get to meet her and to know her. She actually kissed me right there. I didn't wash my face for weeks because Winnie Mandela kissed me and he called me her revolutionary. But she was such a mind, such a political revolutionary mind. Are we studying her? Are we studying her? Are we studying the minds that led Frelimo in Mozambique? Are we studying them? Are we studying the minds who led SWAPO against the might of not just the South African army? The South African army was supported and backed by Israel, Britain, and America, yet SWAPO and Cuba crushed it to the ground. Who were the minds that was singing, SWAPO will win? Let's study our history. Let's see who our great leaders was. Who was that in the PAIGC? How many people know what the PAIGC is? This is the Liberation Front in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. How many people know MLK Cabral? This brilliant medical doctor and this brilliant revolutionary political mind who the West assassinated a few days before he was to go before the UN to declare independence from Portugal. This is what we must do. This is how we restore ourselves. And as far as Mali and us building our weapons, had we had the ability to build our weapons at 1885, they never would have colonized Africa. We were defeating them even with their modern technology, but they came up with one gun that outgunned us. It's called the Gatling gun, the father of the machine gun. And in South Africa, they killed over 1,000 Zulu warriors within a few hours of battle. We couldn't compete against that kind of death technology. And so our leader decided that we can't sacrifice this every day. People waited it out. But study our history and hear about great heroes. Sechuweya. Tell you the story about Sechuweya. That's why I love Sechuweya. If I have another grandson, it's going to be named Sechuweya. This is the king of the Zulu. The British got a garrison station down in South Africa, and one of the sub-chiefs of Sechuweya had some issue with his wife. They ran to the British camp, two of the ladies. So the chief and his soldiers went to the British to say, please return my wife to me. Let them come back home. This is our personal business. When the British wouldn't do it, well, we do what Africans do. When the British raised their guns, we killed them. Then the British general gets very upset, and he brings a major British army of 2,000 men, and they go to Sechuweya, and they said, we want that chief. Turn him over to us. The Sechuweya says, that's not what our law, that's not how our law works. We will follow our law. The British said, we don't care about your law. And so they attack Sechuweya, who wipes out the British garrison at Islam. The battle is called the Battle of Islamabad. And at this battle, this was the largest amount of British troops ever killed anywhere in the world. And it caused the government of Britain to collapse. That government was headed by Robespierre. They'll tell you Robespierre government fell, but they won't tell you Robespierre government fell because the army of South Africa defeated the army of Britain. Study history, erase the mystery. It was shortly after that when they had to meet Brother Bambata, where they introduced that Gatling gun, because we had outmaneuvered them. The Zulu had a fighting system that the American Academy of West Point still uses today. All right. The fighting system of the Zulus. That they still teach it in the American Military Academy today. And that system, had it not been for the Gatling gun, had just about broken the back of the British Army in Southern Africa. So let's study our history. And so, yes, Mali is doing the right thing. we've got to be able to arm ourselves. We've got to have gun technology. We've got to have weapon technology. And as far as the Al-Qaeda and the ISIS, Al-Qaeda and ISIS was invented in Britain, France, America, Germany, and Italy. We live as Muslims, and I'm a Muslimeen. We did not. After the great jihads of the 1800s with Shehu, African Muslims lived in peace with African Muslims. All of a sudden now we've got an Al-Qaeda. All of a sudden now we got an ISIS. It worked for them to destroy Syria. They used ISIS to destroy Iraq. They used ISIS and Al-Qaeda to destroy Afghanistan. Now they've moved their imitation machinery into Africa. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are nothing but arms of Western imperialism, armed by them, financed by them, and trained by them. These are not Muslims. Muslims don't behave in that way. And some can say I'm even a scholar of Islam. I'm Al-Hajj Amin Shahid James Small. Fully honest. Rabat Talim Al-Islamim credentialized. I know the history. I know the culture. That behavior that you've seen as ISIS, that behavior, Islam don't even teach the Sharia foolishness. That foolishness is a violation of the teaching of Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Amin wa alayhi wa salam. So we need to know who we're fighting. We're fighting Western imperialism dressed to look like you for money. We saw how they tried to destabilize Nigeria a few years ago and talking about the Fulanis. Who was giving them the guns? Who was giving them the finance to rape our babies and burn our villages? But we have to take the initiative to go meet with our impoverished people so that they're not able to take our people out of poverty and ignorance and use them against their nation. But that's enough said about that.
That's enough said about that. Yes, Prof. Thank you very much. I mean, this is, history lessons in class. And I want to remind us, now we understand how far we can go when we start by going to Sankofa, when we go back to our roots and we can move further. And Professor James has dedicated his time to take one class after the other, teach us about these Pan-African leaders and their history and our story, as we say in our story. And of course, if we are granted the opportunity, the privilege by our ancestors, he can take us country by country as well, and others. So
someone just raised the name of Didan Kimathi.
Yes,
and so I love Didan Kimathi. And in the 60s, when I was in the street and I thought I was a revolutionary, I took the name of Karoli Wakaranja. And my partner who fought beside me took the name of Kimanthi. And we used those as our aliases as we were fighting in the streets of America. So Didan Kimanthi, who led the Mau Mau in Kenya and fought against British imperialism and colonialism, and who was murdered so brutally by our enemy, should never be forgotten. We need to study Didan Kimanthi. We need to study the people. And the Mawas wasn't just Kikuyus. The Mawas involved many other ethnic nations that was working together to overthrow the colonialists. We need to study how they organized and study how they came together. And one of the things they used, they went back and began to look and said, oh, Africa has the secret society.
Just hold on here for Professor James. Just hold on, please.
Okay.
Professor, I'm sorry for the interruption. It's just a caller that was on the line. Yes. Go ahead. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dr. Tata and Professor James.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, thank you for all what you've been doing. I'm calling from Maryland.
Oh.
Born and raised in Africa. I've been in Maryland for 13 years, and I have a question for Professor James. I've been listening to him for the past 4 years.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'm trying to ask about our belief systems. I've been listening to him and Dr. Anthony T. Browder, and to be honest, I left church because of Professor James. Through his preachings, I left church. I don't go to church anymore. I put all my Bibles in the trash. And I was raised as a Christian all through this age. I'm 44 now. I stopped going to church at the age of 40. And I'm trying to get into the African belief systems, but I don't even know any. Okay. All I do is go look at pictures in the past, my great-grandfather, but is there any belief system I can get into it? I studied the history of Haiti. Last year, I found voodoo and all, but I don't know. Can you just highlight us? What do we now believe in things or systems?
Answer this question for me. What part of the continent were you born? See if you can get it.
I think he's listening though, because he's following on the show.
Reach out to Sister Susan to get to Pan-African Daily TV, and you get my number, and you call me. But let me give some ideas. Two of the largest systems, really, in West Africa, and is the Yoruba system of interpretation. There's no such thing as a Yoruba religion. The Yoruba people, and the Yorubas are one of the largest ethnic nations in West Africa. The Yoruba people practices African religion. Then there's the Akan people, one of the second largest groups in West Africa. The Akan people isn't practicing an Akan religion. The Akan people is practicing an African religion. Now, the difference is location. If I'm in the desert, the tools I will use to tell the story can't be trees. If I'm in the forest, the tools I will use to tell the story can't be sand. But we're trying to tell the same story. And so what we need to do, and I will help you, I will put you in contact with people in Maryland who I know who are part of the indigenous system in Washington, D.C. area, in the Maryland area, where you can go and study, both in the Akan tradition and in the Yoruba tradition, and the Palo, what we call the Palo, the Congo tradition. There are others, but these are strong ones. So if you reach out to Sister Susan and then reach out to me, I will then give you information on those you can contact and places. I always tell people, don't go join in any group. Go sit and listen and understand first. I will also help you with some of the best literature. We have some good literature on African spirituality. We have good literature on indigenous African religions. And one of the finest one I can mention now, John Mbiti. Well, how do you spell Mbiti? M-B-I-T-I. John Mbiti. Is Kenyan, but he wrote a piece called African Religion and Philosophy, which is a must read, and another one he wrote on African religion. Those two books will give you the foundation, and you'll know where to go. Because Christianity, I have been a rugged opponent. I'm backing up a little bit since Christianity has its birth in Africa. But what we're getting is the version that has been Europeanized. The thing you call Christianity, in the formulation we see it, had its birth in Alexandria, Egypt. And then it would go to Syria, Armenia, and Turkey, and Ethiopia from there. And this is before there's a Catholic Church, by hundreds of years. You understand? But once the European gets it in Rome, he transforms it through the Catholic Church and then the Protestant movement into a European cultural phenomenon. leaving out the African essence of the thing. So by studying a John Mbidi, by studying people like, I got his book right here. He was one of my professors. I shouldn't. And Aya Akinjobin from Nigeria, who writes a beautiful piece on Nigeria, religion, and culture. I'll just give you a good bibliography. I'll share with Susan, who can share the bibliography, because there's abundant literature, contrary to what people try to say, on African religion and African spirituality by African people.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to look at that literature, and I'll be glad to share that literature.
Wonderful. Prof, is there any time soon? Because I think this is a very important questions, and I've had to actually get a lot of feedbacks and question on this slide. Do you actually see a period, or now that Africa is rebirthing and trying to restructure its own structure itself, do you see any chance or any way or any future that this institution, African spirituality, would be institutionalized and structured? Like we literally go to the church and we're going to have these assemblies.
Well, see, your question just bespeaks the myth. It never ended. And you can go into any African village in Africa and find the indigenous religion being practiced.
Mm.
Yes, there may be a church down the street and a mosque down the street, but there's also a shrine. I never enter a village when I go to Africa without first getting permission and pouring libation to the ancestors of that village to allow me in with my people.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a village I know in Ghana, that's where I spend most of my time, where there isn't an indigenous practice right along beside Christianity and Islam. And many of the people who are practicing Christianity and Islam is also practicing the indigenous practice. What we have to do is to raise the indigenous practice as primary, the primary spiritual informer of the African mind. But it didn't go anywhere. You can go to Liberia, you can go to Sierra Leone, you can go to Congo. It's still being practiced. Our indigenous religion is still there. Our compost is still there. Black people leave America every day and go to Ghana to be trained to be a compost. And go to the priest and come back here. Black people leave here every day and go to Nigeria to get the hand of Ifa, to be trained to be Babalaos or Babalorishas. So we didn't go anywhere. It's just that we've allowed for the Western institutions to be primary. And we've made our ancestors' institutions secondary. But we haven't abandoned it, because when the West don't work for us anymore, we know which shrine to make it to as quick as we can. Usually in the middle of the night, you know. So no, it's a question of returning to the source.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where history. John S. Mbidi is the author. Thank you, Steve. Important work. Please, if you don't get any book but Mbidi's two books, African Religion and Philosophy and African Religion, you will be so well informed. And his bibliography, use his bibliography. It's a very strong bibliography. Now, I wanted to switch my tool because I got to go pick my babies.
I know.
But I will do it as I'm walking. Let me go here. And go.
Thank you, Sister Stevie, for bringing that up and the name. And like I said, I just text the WhatsApp number in case you just want to ask a quick question while Professor James is going. You know, his time here is always limited, like the lovely, sweet great-grandfather that he is. He has a role, a biggest role to play, you know, pick up the kids. All right, okay. Professor, would it be prudent for you to actually be driving and talking?
No, I just have to walk.
Okay.
To the gate.
All right. Okay,
so
that's good.
You're gonna watch me walk through the house.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna go down so we can talk while I'm walking.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Wonderful. Thank you. Professor is always here. Like I said, this is history.
I'm still here. So I'm still going live.
Yes.
I'm just gonna go pick
We
up
can
my
see
baby.
you.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
can
I'm
see
going
you, Professor.
going down the steps.
Okay, someone is gonna drop him at the door, Prof.
Huh?
Okay, you're not going to drive to pick him from school, isn't it?
No, that one didn't go to school today. She's with her mother taking an exam.
Okay.
So I got two little ones that are coming in on the bus.
Okay.
Oh, three little ones coming in on the bus. So
Okay. 1 second, please. Hi. We're watching you. You're live
oh,
on
you can see
Pan-African
me?
Daily. We follow you.
Okay. I can't see myself.
Listen, just quickly, greetings to you and Professor and everyone else that tuned in. I just need to have direct contact because I want to meet you guys in Africa
Okay.
and membership and donation.
Yes.
I can't get through with the information you gave me for some apparent reason.
Yes. Okay. Now, Sister Elizabeth, I have your contact. I would text you directly on your contact as we speak immediately after the show. Okay.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisbeth. Thank you, sis. Yes. A lot of people are really actually asking the situation and the question of membership. And of course, you can get a membership here on YouTube, but I just sent a WhatsApp channel for you to join. We don't actually have an official WhatsApp channel because WhatsApp is more easy to communicate even when we share the upcoming programs. You can also get it on the website, the africawewant.com, the africawewant.com, the Africa with K. I tried to post it here, but for some reason it's not going to accept it. And so you can get a lot of information on how to join the movement, on how to be a part, all informations that you need. Basically, the most important informations are actually online now, but the news website is a mega website that is work in progress, as you will see. So just don't worry when you go inside, get what you want to get for now. You click on join the movement, join Pan-African Daily TV movement, or you click on fund the movement, or you click on donate. These three links is actually going to, refocus. Professor, do you have snow out there? It looks like it's so terribly cold. Professor James, can you hear us? You're muted. Prof, you're muted. On mute? Oh, I think we lost him right there. Okay. Wonderful. Let's just give Professor James a hand of applause and allow him to go get sweet, beautiful, great Ghanese. That's very important for him to focus. I want to thank all of you. Yes, he was muted, Wolf Maule. He's muted and he's terribly cold. Can I get to know about the weathers in your different communities out there? Because I think the temperatures are really like, Professor, do you hear us? Oh my
Yes,
God.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Terribly cold out there. And
yes.
We can see your background. We saw so much snow.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, this is big. This is high. This is really huge.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna dress really, really warm.
So
Professor
can
James.
you hear me?
Yes, everybody hears you. We see your beautiful background.
Okay. There goes my little babies coming off the bus, all bundled up.
Oh.
Come on.
I like the yellow school lorries.
Yeah, go down.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
so when we can do all the things we have to do. And then all my brothers coming home from work.
Yes, he's not. He's
So
protected.
people can see
that I do have a real life.
Yes. Of course. And a real family.
And a real family. And my poor little baby is so cold.
I know. Oh, and you can imagine the temperatures in Ghana right now, on the continent, in Cameroon, in
Oh, I
Jamaica,
know.
all
You know how cold it
everywhere.
is? Right now, it's 13 degrees.
Minus.
13. Yes. Open it,
Yes, I
son.
was also affected the whole of last week. I just like, I'm just still trying to breathe it out. Wow. Please, people, dress warm in wherever you are in the diaspora. The weather is not really that as easy. And then even the flus that we get in this cold is literally really very risky. So please drink warm water, drink moringa, drink and dress very warm and drive carefully when you're leaving the house, because when you get onto this snow, it could be very risky. Oh,
Yeah.
Professor, you're back.
Huh?
Professor James. Wow.
I'm back in the house. I had to
Back
get
in
my
the house.
My little baby looks so frozen.
I know. Oh, can you imagine? He's just gonna wrap him up now, wrap her up, warm her, give her something to drink. I mean, they're born
Yeah.
in
Their grandma's fixing them something warm.
Oh, yeah. Thank you too so much. Thank you, Professor. Brother Ennis Parker is saying cold in East Texas. Now the snow
Yeah,
is
it's
melting.
snowing in Houston, Texas
Oh,
today.
okay.
So
Can you text us where you're watching us and how your temperatures look like, or the weather? I know people on the continent are going to really be like, "Ooh, come here. We have so much sun and melanin coming up, from from our
I wish I was in Ghana.
that cold."
It was cold. It's
Oh my
freezing out there.
God.
Oh my goodness. Phew.
I know.
You
I
see
can't have an
a
allergy.
big cold.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. So sorry,
Oh
Professor.
no, I have to go pick them
Yeah.
every day. You know, they're the,
That's
they're
good.
the they're the entire world.
Oh my
There's
God.
one more, but he'll come to the door and they'll
All right.
open the door for him. So
Somebody saying Jackson's miss 20 degrees cold and night snow. Oh my God. All right. So
I'm
we're
back
gonna
at
get him
the
on this
TV.
one. Yes. Oh my God, Prof. In the village, you will make like you warm your hands like with your breath, and to get some warm. Yeah. And rub it up. We're so sorry about that. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Now that they're home, then I'm good.
Wonderful.
I got one more to come, but I don't have to get him. He'll take the bus to the door.
Wonderful, Professor. So we would be rounding up the from Nkrumah to Mahama on the history and the legacy of that. Like, what are some of the key takeaway points that we have to? And then, like you said, I think during the weekend or next week or Tuesday next week, we're going to start with Patrice Lumumba or Thomas Sankara. Which is the next leader we're going to be studying? Sorry.
I think Lumumba would be appropriate because him and Nkrumah was very close. He looked, Nkrumah was a mentor to him. And so it'd be wonderful to see that transition. Oh, someone asked how Dr. Jeffries. Dr. Jeffries is well. I was at his house on Sunday. It was his 88th birthday. I went to celebrate, even though it was snowing.
Yeah.
I went to celebrate his birthday with him, and he was so happy because people couldn't come because of the snow. But I was able to get him on the phone with some of his old friends. Ambassador Perezi Kamenaweri from Uganda, who also was a professor in Black Studies. I got him in touch with his old Black Studies secretary, Mrs. Mills in New Orleans. So he had just talking to his friends, he had a wonderful birthday.
Wonderful. 88. Oh my God,
88.
Baba J. And he is still strong and
Yeah.
communicative and all. I mean, that's we don't age anyway, Professor.
Oh no, we do, but we do it gracefully because I'll be 80 on my next birthday. So you have to. And today I went to the dentist and had my tooth cleaned, and they go like, "Your tooth has lasted a long time." I said, "Yeah, 80 years." Yeah.
Oh yes, of course. My father also, even at,
Hi, Marvin.
yes, he said it's 68 in Los. Oh, Baba Marvin, Lupe, wonderful to have you on the show. I mean, when Professor James is coming, I mean, all the
So,
all the
yes,
friends and the network.
you know, in Nkrumah, and I'm glad people see that I'm a grandfather. Somewhere down when I was running down the stairs, I passed my wife, and we've been together 54 years. Struggling, you don't keep a family willy nilly. You struggle to do this. But I want you to know I'm human like you, and there's nothing mythical about me. I have to go pick up my grandchildren. I'll give them snacks later. Their grandma's giving them some warm tonic now to drink. And that's a normal day, you know, doing the things that a father does. One of my daughters was by earlier seeking some advice, and I do that. And then I try to teach as much as I can while I can still do it. But believing, the thing is to believe in our ancestors, love our ancestors. Brother asked me to big up Wadu, the World African Diaspora Union. Big up to Wadu. I'm one of your international vice presidents.
Oh,
I said most people don't know, but I'm one of the founders of Wadu. We go back.
so Robert Forbes is watching from Turkson. What
And
do you say? Caicos Island.
Oh, Robert, you're breaking my heart. 84 degrees.
Imagine.
You see me, look, big coat, hood.
84 Fahrenheit. You can imagine, Professor. And Sylvia Stanback is watching from Greensboro.
Hi, Sylvia.
24
and
degrees.
It's 24 degrees. I haven't been in Greensboro for a while. So how's all the family there? I hope everybody's doing well.
Wow. All right. I think we have a call from Nana, Nkrumah's Nana, to you. Well, please just keep posting your environment, your weather. We'll get back to you soon. We'll push it through. Yes.
Yes. Habari, beautiful family, Professor James. And in the spirit of honoring our ancestors and carrying on the work they did and not bringing it to waste, and yesterday being Martin Luther King Day, I wanted you to speak to the people, like the boycotts that Martin Luther King wanted us to have in demand of our reparations and our independence, right? If America, Black America, was to go on a 7-day boycott, where we boycott everything, work, shopping, spending, going to school, right? It would affect the economy and we'll have the power. But as you said, we're having mental slavery issues. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to speak to the people in conditioning them and getting them ready for the necessary steps like boycotting that we may need to do to honor our ancestors and get ourselves where we need to be.
Okay, you came in a bit late. We opened up with that.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say.
Dr. King, when he left Ghana in 1957, where he was with Nkrumah, and he wrote a wonderful speech talking about how Ghana was a model and an example and leading the way to freedom in Africa, and Nkrumah and his strength and the people who were with him. And then I talked about his last speech where he talked to us about using boycotting as a weapon. And he even named some of the companies and how he told us how to move our monies out of the European banks and put the money in Black banks and Black credit unions in the communities we live in. So that's how we opened up the show today. But it still should be reiterated. So I'm glad that you brought it up because a lot of other people may have missed it. Dr. King was very big on boycotting. That was one of his most powerful weapons, but the West don't talk about that much. They'll talk about the sit-ins, but they don't talk about the boycotting. And it wasn't just boycotting, it was disrupting. We would go in the supermarket, fill up all of the carts, full with groceries, bring them up to the counter, and then everybody walked out. Now they had to put everything back on the shelf, right? And nobody would shop at that market. We would just put a line in front of the market. Nobody would shop at that market until it either supported our movement or went out of business. So boycotting is a very powerful weapon, and we talked about it earlier. And it is not just a local weapon, it is an international weapon. We can use it against the pharmaceutical companies. We can use it against any multinational corporation who does not support our government, who does not support the interests of African people. Then we will tell that multinational, whether it's iPhone, whether it's the Ford Motor Company, whether it's the British Car Company, we will tell any multinational, if you are not supporting the government in a positive way in the nations of Africa, then we will pull out trillions of dollars back from you. The African Americans last year alone, just the Black American alone, spent $1.8 trillion last year. $1.8 trillion. That's an economy bigger than nearly every African nation. And we spend most of it with with European corporate interests. Now take all of the 2+ billion people on the continent of Africa. You know the money we are spending to buy European goods instead of reverting that money to buying goods from Africa so that we can develop our industry and our industrial foundation. So not even beyond boycotting, let's talk about making a trend, spending with self, investing with self. Let that be the new trend. Not a boycott. The trend. That will be the policy going forward. And Malcolm X's sister used to teach me, she says, Bubba, we will do for ourselves what others are begging for. We will do for ourselves what others are begging for because we've got the wealth in our hands. And so Dr. King and them used the boycott well. But see, boycott presupposes, okay, when you do right by us because we've almost made you broke, then we will come back to you. No, we will not come back to you. We will take the money that we are now giving you and we will give it to African people. We will give it to African business. We will give it to African banks. We will give it to African corporations. We will invest it in African projects. That has to be the trend. That is a more powerful revolutionary weapon than any atomic bombs they've got.
Yeah. Or than any boycott. Instead of wasting that energy and to do that, just do the right thing.
Yeah, let's take care of self. Do for self. Take care of our family. Provide the food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security our family deserve and requires. And if we do that, Africa will be fine without help from anybody. We don't need the World Bank. We don't need the International Monetary Fund. We've got the money in our hands. We need to share it with one another. If we just share with each other what's in our hands, we will be loaning money to the World Bank with interest. And that's not just the same, with interest.
I think the brother asked when Baba J would be coming back to the Godfather in Harlem. He asked, I think that was a question. I couldn't really trace it.
No, I know the question. The Godfather of Harlem is the movie that I'm the consultant. I'm the historical consultant. We finished episode 4 or season 4 in November. So the editing and everything is about finished. They haven't given us the date of release. We're just guessing that the release will come near the end of January or the first week in February. But it's probably the best 10 episodes we've made. This is the 40th episode that we've done. And so everyone is waiting for it. Forrest Whitaker is still the extraordinary star. Sister Elfanish from Ethiopia, who plays his wife, is equally extraordinary. The young lady who and she's going to kill me for getting her name, who plays Bumpy Johnson's daughter, she was Malcolm X's secretary, but Malcolm has died, so now she's become a leader in the Black Panther Party in the movie. So we've introduced the Black Panther Party to take the place that the Malcolm X character once held. So it's going to be an interesting new series. I can't wait for it to come out. I've only seen one episode so far in the studio, but it'll be out soon.
Wonderful. And where are we going to be watching it? On
it will be on MGM Plus and Hulu. MGM Plus and Hulu.
Anyway, we'll have enough information about that, Professor James. Right. Wonderful. Good. Thank you. I mean, we almost cracked here 2 hours today. I mean, plus the family session. That was very important. That was very nice. Thank you so very much. And please, I'm asking our audience to just like the show. That's another way of investing in Black businesses.
Please like this show and subscribe to this show, and any donations you can make to this platform to help it grow strong. They've done a lot to stop us. They've done a lot to minimize Sister Susan, but we have to stay here and support her. Support her with your donations, support her with your likes, support her with your subscription, and tell other friends about Pan-African Daily TV. You know, introduce family members to Pan-African Daily TV, because we do have people from all over the world, male and females, bringing you the best body of knowledge we can get our hands and minds around. Because this is about freedom. You use whatever tool you have. This is a tool. It's not entertainment. It's a tool. We can use it to entertain, and that's not bad. Or we can use it to educate. That's not bad either. So it's how do we use this medium as a tool for liberation? How do we use this medium as a tool for Pan-Africanism? How do we use this medium as a tool to restore African consciousness? To understand, like the brother from Maryland who was talking about our indigenous religions, so many people have left the church and the mosque, but have not been able to find the institution. So one day we have to do something, Susan, where we just tell people all over the world where they can go. And if you're in Maryland, you can go here. If you're in New York, you can go here. If you're in California, you can go here. If you're in Florida, you can go here. These are the institutions. But like I said, if you come to Ghana, say if you're from Ghana and you go home, don't just go to the village and go to your local church. If you don't go to the village and tell any of the elders. You don't even have to ask. You know where the shrine is. Go there and say, I'm a child of a Daddy Kofi. I'm a child of Nana Parabia. I'm a child of the Obosum. I want to come and talk to them. You don't really have to be in a shrine. See, the beautiful thing about an African religion, you don't need a building. I told you this metaphor before. The white man came to Togo. This is a Catholic bishop told me this in Togo back in '83. He said, Small, you don't really put your eyes up. He wanted me to see that, yes, we're Catholic, but we still practice voodoo. And so he said, when the white man came, they wanted to build a church. So they found out where the voodoo shrine is, and they built a church right on top of the voodoo shrine. Okay, they call that hallowed ground. So they know to do that, right? And so, and secondly, he said they came and they wanted us our ancestors to help them build the church. But the ancestors just sat on the tree and laugh and enjoy themselves. And the white man said, "Oh, look at those foolish Africans.
Mhm.
They're not smart enough to come and help us build a house to God." Africans are laughing, "Oh, those foolish white men who think they can build a house big enough to hold God." You understand?
Yeah,
There's no house you can build big enough to hold God. God is
exactly.
everywhere. And in Africa culture, God is everywhere. I want to pour libation. I'm in Ghana. I go to Sathia, Mother Earth, and I pour my libation to Mother Earth wherever I'm at. She's the whole planet. I want to talk to my Father. I raised my energy and meditation and prayer up, from which the energy comes that impregnates the matter. Our tradition is the most scientific based theology on the planet Earth. But you've got to study it. It's all about cosmology and ecology and the human role in it. And our ancestors understood it thoroughly. And we gave it to the West. They just misused it. Christ had 12 Obosun, 12 Orisha, 12 Loas. Now, in Voodoo, we call the forces Loas.
Mhm.
In Yoruba, we call the forces Orisha.
Mm.
In Akan, we call the forces Obosun. In Christianity, we call the forces disciples. If you look up, you'll realize they're all the same thing. The 12 disciples are not men. They're quality and attributes in the character and the personality of the Christ itself.
Mm.
You know? So that's why history will erase the mystery. I told you before, study Kemet. Ancient Egypt is not a white thing. It's a black thing. Read Cheikh Anta Diop, Civilization of Barbarism. Cheikh Anta Diop out of Senegal, Civilization of Barbarism. A must read. And then you'll have a good foundation on Kemet. Read The Stolen Legacy by C.L.R. James. And you'll have a good foundation on the African creation of Egypt.
Mm.
And then you'll understand why in the Bible, because the Bible is part history, part metaphor, part allegory. You have to know the difference between the history and the allegory. In the story where Christ goes to Egypt, why would God send his son to Africa? You know, but Christ goes, "Oh, La Familia, yeah, I used to love my brother. Yes, hey, I used to love La Familia. We had some good times there through the years." That's a restaurant that was in Harlem on 125th and Fifth Avenue. So this man knew me from way back.
Way back. Papa
But
Cheesy is a staunch follower
yeah,
of Pan-African Daily. Yes.
so so we have to understand that's why we got to study.
Mhm.
So religion, Christianity isn't all European. They took it from us and mismanaged its structure and
Mm.
represented it back to us in a deformed mode. But we have to study indigenous African religion to see what the integrity of the original Christian motif should be.
Mm.
That's why if you go to Ethiopia, they don't have the same Bible as the West. They got some other stuff going on. They don't have the same rituals. You understand?
Even the
And
same calendar and time. They
oh,
just
completely
celebrated
different.
Christmas last week and New
And
Year.
yeah,
They celebrate New Year before Christmas. I
yeah,
mean,
and if you know, like when you study Kemet and you hear about Ra and the sun being the symbol. So when you look at Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, he's got Christ sitting there with the sunlight coming from his head. It's Ra. On either side of him, we got 4 groups of 3. That's the 4 seasons and the 12 months and the 12 signs of the zodiac going around the sun. It is an anthropomorphic representation of a solar drama that he painted, not Christ and the disciples. They're the metaphor for the allegory about a scientific truth but cosmology and ecology. That's African religion. But if you don't know, someone could steal your stuff. Once he's blind you to the history of the ancestors, he can steal your stuff and give it back to you in a different package, and you'll swear it's his.
Absolute. I think history is actually our spirituality, Professor James.
Oh, absolutely.
We understand that.
History is a part, history is the experiences of your ancestors in your best interests. History, your history is the experience of your ancestors in your best interest. And if you don't know that, then whose best interest are you talking about?
Absolute.
You know? So that's why we must study history, return to our indigenous ways. There's so much literature out here. Don't be afraid to search and find the books. You can just actually Google, use some good dictionaries and encyclopedias and other information sources, and just say, what are the fundamental books on indigenous African religions? You will be surprised at the bibliographies you can get.
Yes.
You don't have to wait for me to give you a book. What is the top book? And that reminds me, I got to call Brother Chinwezu. Chinwezu, if you're watching us, and you need to be watching Pan-African Daily TV, I got the message. I will call you this week. Nana told me, and Nana Nkesi told me to give you a call. That's another one of our great literary minds that we need to pay more attention to. For those who had asked questions earlier about that question about why do we go against the people like Nkrumah who signed the leaders? Yes. I would recommend the book Things Fall Apart. Right. You know
Wallace Shoenka. Yes, I have it. I have it. I can bring a copy.
Should be a must read. Everybody, because he breaks colonialism and its impact down to the least common denominator. You can really get it, you know. What do you think of the book entitled The People of the Sun by Emmanuel Odom Ocrane? I haven't read it, but I know of him, and I would say anything he's written, it needs studying. Because when we think of the Akan people, there's a brother, he's an ancestor now, Nyangora Buddha. And Buddha wrote a 3-volume set, big book, on the African gold weights. But it's the name is deceptive. You think he's talking about the gold weights, but he's talking about the symbol of the spiritual and linguistic system. And he takes it all the way back to Kemet. So yeah, the Akan tradition, like everything don't come out of Kemet. Let me make that clear. A lot of times we get guilty of saying Kemet, Egypt, and we miss what we really should be looking at. We went from the rest of Africa to build Kemet. And when the Chinua Achebe, thanks for Chinua Achebe, not Sharenka, Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, must read. Everybody's watching Pan-African Daily TV, get that book. It will give you the foundation on how to look at Pan-Africanism. But we went from West Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, East Africa, and we went up the Nile River, down the Nile River, and we built ancient Egypt. And then the invaders came, and we went back home. Let me say that again, because we don't want to have, because I hear a lot of people saying, oh, they came here from Kemet and they brought this with them. No, we took it to Kemet. We took the system to Kemet from all over the rest of Africa. And we synthesized it into one system. And when the Hittites and their 2 invasions, and the Hyksos and their 2 invasions, and the Syrians and their 2 invasions, and the Greeks and the Persians and their 2 invasions, and the Romans, and then the Arab came, and the Turks, they drove us out of Northeast Africa by the tens of millions. And we went back to Central Africa. back to Southern Africa, back to Eastern Africa, back to West Africa. The people in Cameroon will tell you a story about migrating from the East. The people in Ghana will tell you a story about migrating from the East. But if you go deep enough, they'll tell you how they migrated from the West to the East. There used to be 2 rivers that ran from the Atlantic Ocean to the Nile. They can still be seen from outer space by the satellites. All we had to do is get in a rowboat. It was like going from Maryland to New York on the weekend. I mean, it took a little longer, a week or 2 weeks to get from one place to the other, 3 weeks. But we were able to do it. Lake Chad was almost 100 times the size it is today. And Lake Chad was the center point where we stopped on the way to the east. The Sahara was green. The Sahara was a green, flourishing savanna. And when it dried up, we went somewhere. Another good book, Dr. Chancellor Williams' book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Very good book. To understand again, to understand colonialism. Another one that he wrote, which also helps to get a good understanding of colonialism and its impact on our mind, is from Columbus to Castro. Columbus to Castro by Eric Williams. Not Chancellor, Dr. Eric Williams wrote that one. Chancellor Williams wrote The Destruction of Black Civilization. The first one is Eric Williams, who was the Prime Minister of Trinidad. His book was so powerful, he didn't allow anybody to read it in the country while he was the president because they might have overthrown him for being a neo-colonial president. But it's interesting, but the wisdom in the book and the information is extraordinary. Extraordinary. Yeah, they're working on an African passport. I think we're going to get it before the year is out.
Yeah, but it's already, I think it's just a matter of, to process all these things, because I saw it at the African Union. I mean, the diplomats are already using it, but of course, it's also in Agenda 2063, to process everything by country, and that we also have to be patient to understand these things that we're asking is not just going to be done today, but they're already in the pipeline. I can guarantee that. I saw it.
Yeah, you were in, Susan, you spent a lot of time, quite a good time in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the African Union.
Yes.
And you had a chance. I was so happy and proud of you at the same time that you were there and so involved in that process. We're fighting. Africans all over the world are fighting. Africans all over the continent is fighting for freedom. We don't hear much of them, but that's what we're trying to do. Pan-African Daily TV is bring more of them together, more of them together, more of them together. So for those of us who are out here fighting, we will know each other better.
Yes.
And it will enhance the fight and its success. But we will be free. We will be free. And that's why I still love that song that Swapo would sing.
The Swapo song. Swapo will be free.
People need to study Swapo. We because that was the German sector of colonialism. We don't tend to lean towards Swapo and try to understand. But the fight that those young people in Swapo put up, the fight that they put up against South Africa, and what was the mightiest army on the continent that day, backed by Israel, backed by Britain, backed by America, and Swapo wiped them out, send them running across the border. History
erases the mystery.
Yes, we have so much to be proud of. Even in our modern day, we have so much to be proud of. When we think, I was in Ghana when Jerry Rawlings brought Mother Yaa Santiba's remains back to Ghana and gave her a state funeral. Right? And how many of our young women know this, or young men know the story of Queen Mother Yaa Santiba?
Yeah.
And how she took on the might of the British Army. She didn't defeat them completely, but she put up such a wonderful battle. Dr. Wade Noble, time for one Africa. Hey, Brother Wade. Yes, sir. Time for one Africa. And I think that's where we're moving, Wade, where you've helped Dr. Nobles, that brought us a long way. Well, I got you right here, you know. And another good book, you know, the Island of Meme. You know, I love that book, Wade. The Unfinished Haitian Revolution. And then your latest work, I think I got it right here too, because I don't leave home without the Wade Noble. Where are you? Oh, from Black psychology to the science of being.
We really need to have
Black
Dr. Wade Nobles
psychology,
again on the show.
yeah, to the science of being by Dr. Wade Nobles. Because Wade has been dealing with the African spirituality for decades. And he looks heavily on the Akan tradition and the Yoruba tradition, which he's well versed in both, and others. So please don't sleep Dr. Wade Noble's literature. Congo is my country book, Dr. Fils Lumumba. Okay. Lumumba, and even if Lumumba sneezed and we heard he sneezed, read about his sneezing. Because that was a young man. Remember, he was a very young man when he sneezed. Yes. That is the young man who came out of, you remember these people who are coming, Nkrumah came from a village. Lumumba came from a village.
Yes, we're all village people.
There was a tradition that produced them. They didn't produce themselves. The indigenous African tradition sent them forth into the world to take on colonialism. And they did. To great success, with no weapons, no money, you know, and our people not even understanding them fighting for freedom. You know? So study. There's
history.
Abundant literature. There's abundant literature. If we never wrote another book, which I think we need to keep on writing, there is enough literature to inform us on the things we need to know. So, and look at the different countries we focus. Let's look at Zambia. What is going on in Zambia?
Honestly,
we have trauma now in Mozambique. Let's find out what is the trauma about in Mozambique. How can we help with the trauma in Mozambique? What's going on in Tanzania? What's going on in Kenya? What's going on in Uganda? Maybe today we need to restudy Idi Amin Dada. I love Idi Amin Dada. I don't care what nobody says.
When we get to Uganda, Professor.
Dada, man, I'm Idi Amin. When you study that man, you would say they lied such a big lie that we believe their big lie about this great man who simply tell them, Africa first or go home.
Yes.
Africa first or you go home. And then he didn't just put you out. He said, I will even pay you and compensate you, both the English and the Indian. If you do not want to invest your money in Uganda, if you do not want to bank your money in Uganda, then go home and I will buy your business from you. You go leave my country be. And for that, they ostracize them. Western media at its best vilify him, you know. And so we need to study, was Idi Amin a villain or was he a Pan-African? You know? Let's study history and erase the mystery. They told you that Didan Gamanti was a terrorist and they murdered him. Was he a terrorist or was he our savior? Right? Remember Stephen Biko said, let's go back to Stephen. What does Stephen Biko say? The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind
of the oppressed.
If we never forget that and get Chinua Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart, and listen to an African on the continent talking about colonialism from an African indigenous mindset.
Oh my God. You know. Particularly the elders in the village Papa
Mhm.
Smalls. I mean, that's the deepest history we could ever think about. And
Mm.
they know a lot, but we're not asking. They know
And
everything.
mhm. There's another good book that we have not read. This generation have never even heard of. It's
Mhm.
called Facing Mount Kenya by Jomo Kenyatta. Facing Mount Kenya by Jomo Kenyatta. He
Mhm.
also goes to the indigenous structure and explain how it works and how they were able to foster the Mau Mau resistance and revolution
Mhm.
using indigenous structure. It's called Facing Mount Kenya by Jomo Kenyatta.
Wow.
There's so much good literature out here.
So
Here
much.
come my other little prince. All right, this is King.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm good.
Say
How are
hello
you?
to us. Say hello to us. How was the weather? It's
It was
cold?
good. It was cold, but like it wasn't that cold.
Okay. Wonderful. Greetings to Grandma and every other person, okay?
Okay.
Wonderful. When are you coming on Pan-African Daily to tell us about your day?
I don't know.
All right.
One day.
One day.
His name is King Akhenaten.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Professor. Yes. Mm.
That was the one. The other two have already gone to their mother's house, who lives around the corner from us. So I have 3 that sleep here, and then 2 that's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvia that she has Facing Mount Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we've got the literature. We got to go to the literature written by Africans about Africans.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go to the literature written by Africans about freedom and freedom processes. You see, and because our people have paid the price. You know, when Fela Kuti, when we listen to music, we talk about African beat, but you don't even understand African beat until you study Fela. You know, you won't even understand the young man. What's his name? That's so popular in Nigeria today. Burna Boy.
Burna Boy. Yes.
But his family worked with Fela.
Fela Kuti, yes.
Yes, so
The mother.
he's in the tradition. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't just pop up. He didn't just come out of nowhere. He
Absolutely.
comes out of a mother who comes out of a culture that Fela created, using music as a tool of liberation, using culture as a tool of liberation.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor. Honestly, you're charging us up here.
But Elizabeth made a good point about Rwanda, even though there's a lot of discussion about Rwanda and M23 going on now. People need to study that history too. The people in the Eastern Congo, they're Tutsi, and they've never lived in Rwanda. They've always lived in Congo for the last thousands of years. The argument is around ethnicity, but because the white Europeans want to get control of the wealth of Eastern Congo, they're going to make it appear that somehow Rwanda has sent those people there. So those people have lived there for thousands of years. It is the Belgians who cut them off from their Tutsi family. The Belgians drew that line that's called Congo and cut off the Tutsis in Congo from the Tutsis in Rwanda. So study the history. I'm not going to go into detail of that. But what I like about
we would also treat that in the next classes.
Eventually, yeah, we have to. We'll be dealing with Patrice Lumumba, so we'll go there.
Yeah, actually.
The one beautiful thing about our indigenous system, the system is saying after 30 years of the great genocide, how Rwanda has united. Rwanda was able to unite it because it did not use a Western justice system to solve the problem. It used an indigenous African system to resolve the legal contradiction that had occurred in the crime that led to the genocide. And so it was an African judicial and indigenous spiritual system that they used to seek justice.
Yes.
And that's why they've got unity without revenge killings and all that other stuff. So we need to really go back and turn to our ancestors. Our ancestors left us all we need. But we have to go back and get it and go back and use it.
It's like in Ethiopia, at the museum, they have a secret room where all the rituals about conflict management, whether in homes, between children, between families, between marriages, in a traditional way. And it was like, they didn't have to go to court and to do this. So even conflict management and all those things, peacekeeping force or negotiations, we did it long time ago, Professor.
Of course. But we have to re-socialize. Socialization means how you get your values, your interests, and principles. Right now, the education system, the colonial education system across Africa, is still socializing us in the values, interests, and principle of the imperialists, of the colonialists, of the invaders. We have to re-socialize ourselves by getting into literature that teaches us about the indigenous spiritual system, the indigenous political system, the indigenous economic system, the indigenous education system of our ancestors. That's our freedom route. That's our freedom route. And we can't be afraid. Dr. King and those people that marched with him, he was telling a story that one night they were in Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And the Klan was all outside. They had their guns, and the police and the sheriff, they had their dogs. They were ready with the fire hoses. And there was about 1,000 of them, mostly white men. In the church was about 250 black men and women. And so the white men thought, well, we got them locked up in the church. There's no way they can come out here. But they sat in that church and they appealed to the ancestors. They sang a song. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. And when that got warmed up and the blood got warm, then they brought it down to the last base. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free.
Be free.
And the theme to that was, oh, freedom.
Oh, freedom.
Oh, freedom over me.
Yes, I
And
know.
once they brought that African spirit up in their bodies, they opened the doors of the church and walked out in front of those guns and dogs and knives and fire hoses and police, unafraid, because they took the African spirit and God with them, and they broke the back of white supremacy with the African spirit and God. And they sat and they sang and they drummed. We didn't have the drums, so we drums without clapping. We drummed without stumping, but we developed the African drum rhythm. And then when we took that out that door, nothing could stand against it.
Spirituals.
Ancestors.
Negro spirituals. Come and see the way they rock every winter and summer here in Germany. Everybody, their concerts are outsold. Anything, even the business ones that were coming up, 4-3 sisters just looking black, and you just sing spirituals, you are highly booked everywhere. So we need Pan-African movements and choirs like that about our freedoms.
Well, you got to restore it. You got to sing the songs about your ancestors. You got to sing the songs about yourself. The enemy understands the power of the song, because the song is a vibration from your soul coming out to your comrades, to your brothers and sisters. And the vibration from your soul is the vibration and the rhythm of your ancestors embedded in your soul that you're now sharing with the world. And then they meet one another and unite as a force. But he understands that. That's why he gave you the mess and the ugliness that we were getting from hip hop. He said that same African body that can take the positive medicine will also take the negative medicine. And for money, a lot of us carried the poison. But we thought of death. we saw the destruction that poison did to a whole generation. That's not all of the young people who were using hip hop and rap as a motif. It's not a culture. It was just the musical mode of African culture. Okay, the misnomer to call it a culture. You have to be a culture. You have to be a people that is, manifesting yourself. That was not the manifestation of 90% of the African American population. That was the manifestation of the Jewish and Italian mafias who were running the music industry and using that as a mode of oppressing the mind of African American people and African people worldwide. So there's some good book of musicology too that we need to study. And there's one book for the history of musicology, and it's by Professor Nketiah from Ghana. Professor Nketiah, African Musicology. It will surprise you what we don't know about African music and its power. So, where are we, Sister Susan?
Here we are. Good. I mean, we just don't want to leave you go today, Professor James, because until next Tuesday with the next class in session, we don't know what we're going to be doing without you. But thank you so very much, Professor.
Well, and, I'm doing a juice fast this week, so this is my third day.
Yes.
And I'm hungry because I'm used to eating food. This is my third day doing a juice fast, just to cleanse, along with another group of brothers and sisters, led by one of my sisters, Dr. Celeste Palmer out of Houston. To try and just, just stay healthy enough to keep doing what we do. I don't know if I'm going to make the whole week. I was telling Dr. Palmer today, I'm getting kind of weak, Dr. We're kind of hungry.
Professor, after that, they make you some big fufu banku, please. I mean, that is a necessity of it. Yes. We wish you good appetite. We're going to be sharing the meal together with you as we eat spiritually too. Thank you so very much. So, Professor, Tuesday, next week, the next class on Patrice Lumumba. Are we correct?
Tuesday would be good. We could make it, I don't have a dental appointment then, so we could make it at 1:00. So it's a little bit early.
So we have enough time on two. Yes. All right. 1:00, people, you hear that's 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 7 p.m. our time here. So, Professor,
and in the meantime, look up Patrice Lumumba. Study. Look up the Congo. What was going on in the Congo at the time he rises to prominence? There's a young lady, I'm not going to tell you about her now, but who worked with him. She was his executive assistant. You need to know her, but she will be my surprise guest. She's an ancestor now, but her daughter just wrote a book about her. But she was also a close friend of Nkrumah's as well. And
wonderful.
She just happened to be out of the country at that period of time when Lumumba was assassinated. She was one of the closest persons to him. And we need to learn about the role of some of these women in those revolutionary struggles during the 60s, the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
So we're going to cover that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Professor. Enjoy your meal.
Mr. Susan, and you do the same.
Greetings to everyone.
Don't make the study of our history a burden. Don't make the discussion too intellectually overpowering.
Yes.
Keep it simple. Malcolm said, make it plain. If people, you can sit and use all of the big words and quote all of the big books, but if the people don't hear you, you wasted their time and you've wasted your time.
Just like we do in a conversational way. But that's the African spirituality of storytelling, Professor James Moore, isn't it?
Yes. Tell the people the history and the culture and the language they understand so that they could get it. But African culture is a universal culture. I know some people say, well, you can't really tell it in other languages. Yes, you can. That's why we created Creole. I want this said today. We took English and made it African.
Yes. Pigeon.
We took French and we made it African.
Yes, Francolingua.
And we made it African. We can take any language and use the African grammar structure and make it tell our story. And so don't let nobody tell you you can't do it. They're doing that to keep you from teaching. So that people don't know what you know. So I ain't have to do that no way, no how. You know? No. I am the universe. I can take anything in the universe and make it vibrate the divine because I am the universe.
Ashe.
So, Sister Susan.
Yes. Yes, Professor James.
Thank you for being so strong. And we know you carry a lot of burden. But again, people like Pan-African Daily TV. Subscribe to Pan-African Daily TV. Donate to Pan-African Daily TV. That's the only thing that's going to keep this on, so you can see the PLO Lumumba. You can see the Joshua Mapunga. You can see the Wade Noble. You can see the Baina Bello.
Oh, yeah.
And so many others from around Africa. I saw the picture. You did meet the Queen Mother in Germany the other day.
No, she's traveling on Thursday. She's coming in on Thursday. She just texted. She was the one texting. She's arriving on Thursday, and she'll be the whole weekend. So, yeah.
Well, give her my love and regards.
Of course, I will, Professor.
I enjoyed her when she was on Pan-African Daily TV.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right,
I hope we'll be able to stream her. Thank you.
Peace
Thank you,
and
Professor.
blessings.
Peace and blessings and love to you all. Thank you also. Thank you so very much, my beloved people, family, Pan-African Daily TV family. It's always a wonderful pleasure. So as you can hear, we're going to be studying history, with Professor James Moore. Like, it's a storytelling. Some people say our ancestors didn't write book. A lot of people say, oh, it's because we don't read book that we didn't understand. I mean, who taught the ethics of reading or writing books? Our ancestors just knew how to convey knowledge in a more conventional way, not to break your head and make to just like we speak. So our literature, our history, our everything was brought from one generation to the other. And even making the study, it was so comfortable. Like if we were in the village, would have been surrounded at the fireside, eating some fresh granuts and plum and fresh corn, drinking some palm wine. I'm telling you, at that time you can study like you study in entertaining, right, or in enjoyment. So thank you so very much. We're going to continue this conversation, but I just want to bring to your attention our guest for Thursday. As you already saw, most of you that are following me, and that's why I keep telling you, please make sure you join the WhatsApp group, the WhatsApp channel. That's where we share a lot of daily information. Or now our website is open. You can actually follow us too on the africawe1.com. So tomorrow, on Thursday, we have this brother Paul Ella, like Professor James talked about the great grandmother of Malcolm X, Ella, and that's how this brother got his name. Also, he's a brother. He's called Paul Ella, and he's actually the founder and the CEO of what we call the Pan-African Awards. From the Organization of Africa Revival. And this brother is putting up a massive, please don't go. I want you to get this information out because it's a very historic and a very important event that we're going to be hosting in Nairobi, Kenya. I know a lot of you have been always looking for the possibility, how can I travel to the continent? It is opportunities and events like this that will take us on this pilgrimage. So the Pan-African Awards are going to be hosted in Nairobi, Kenya on the 21st of February. Now you can already see all the powerful speakers that are going to be attending this historic event. Professor PLO, of course, is the host. When I said the host, like the king in his palace on his throne, okay, is going to be the keynote speaker, of course, and he's also going to do other lectures apart from just that. Now, I don't know if you know this sister. And this sister, this will be an opportunity for us to network, and she's going to be on our show. She's called Natalie Nyam. You know her. There is no Pan-African in this life in this century that doesn't know Miss Natalie Nyap. Natalie Nyap is one of the most fiercest. I mean, everybody calls her the Professor Baina of our time. Professor Baina of our time. So she's going to be speaking. And we, of course, we had Professor Jean-Emmanuel Pondy, who actually was the first professor that started the Sahel Alliance lectures. And we studied just one lectures with him. And definitely he will be coming. But he was the first one that wrote, even before the alliance was created. And when it created and the first formations, he just went out on webinars and everywhere talking about the alliance of the Sahel, okay, and the formation and everything that is. And then we have our sister, most of you know her, Dr. Mumbi Speaks. Dr. Mumbi is also the Queen of Kenya, and she's definitely going to be a guest speaker at this historic Pan-African Awards in Nairobi, Kenya, February 21st. And of course, we have, of course, the king in his space, King Maponga Joshua Marara III, okay? He's also going to speak a lot on African spirituality, indigenous knowledge systems, and these are farmers. He's a farmer of thought, you know. Currently, he's in the village, but he's still doing, he just came out last week and was doing his shows live, and he definitely will be meeting us soon. So yes, and of course, who is going to be the host and the moderator? No other person than Queen Dr. Susan Tata speaking to you right now. So yes, if you want to be on the street and you want to be a part, or you know somebody who's been eager to go to Africa, particularly Kenya, Nairobi, this is your wonderful opportunity for you to be on the strip. Okay, I'm not just saying because I'm really just giving that travel information, that these are opportunities that we just not go, but we have something that we're going to learn and to meet people face to face that otherwise we'll never have had the opportunity actually to meet them in this period in time. So please, I'll be sharing it. And this brother, the founder, Brother Paul Ella, is going to be our guest on Thursday to actually tell us to educate us on the topic, why Pan-African Awards. Of course, he's doing it for the 4th time. And in Cameroon last year, he hosted it. I was present. Professor Baina was also present. Brilliant information that we discovered from the French-speaking Cameroonians about their mentality and their notion of Pan-Africanism, something that we rarely even talk about it or know about it. When we talk about French African countries, we definitely would be speaking only about the active wars and the invasion of French and France and all that. But of course, they are big Pan-Africanists, Pan-African speakers, Pan-African like Seba, Kema, all of you, Kemi Seba, you know, this name's Natalie Yam. These are names in the Pan-African history, but because they're more oriented in the French-speaking, zones, so we don't really get to know about them. But it's a very powerful speakers. But of course, Natalie Yam and all of them, they do speak English. Okay, so yes, like I said, we're gonna have Dr. Mumbi speak. Probably most of them, if they have time, would have to introduce their topic to us live on Pan-African Daily TV. Before that, I really cannot promise. I don't know anything about their schedule, but I think the brother would tell us more when we meet on Thursday. So please show up for this show. Tomorrow we're gonna be doing the back office session, trying to put a lot of content on the website, which is live now. Like I told you, please just go to www.theafricawewant.com. I said Africa with K, one word, theafricawewant.com, and there you can sign up to join the movement with an annual a donation or membership fee of 150 euros annually, and you have another category on the 150. We are good to go. Of course, we need to get this movement going on, and thanks for your support. We're gonna keep it alive. Okay, this is our time. There's no turning back. It's our generation to carry the lamps of ancestors, Baba Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all the elders in Nkrumah, Persis Luma, all of them that we're studying today is because they're just giving us the touch lamp to continue the work. And so it's our time to deliver. When we saw the Gaveist by Dr. Marcus Garvey, when they went to the continent and did raise funding to be able to fund the Black Star Alliance and the movement, I mean, these were all steps that they took, because we need finance to be able to fund the revolution. We read a text and a comment on one of the Pan-Africanists saying, oh, you know, when you're Pan-Africanist, you can really engage yourself, and most of them would be flying private jets. I say, give me a break. I've never seen any revolutionary or revolutionary movement that became a super rich. They don't fund you. Nobody's going to fund you talking about the liberation of Africa and the freedom of the people. Nobody funds you on that. You're not even going to get a sponsor. So we need to fund the movement. We need to fund ourselves. We need to fund our initiatives and attend all these sessions and conferences. So if you are interested, text me or join the WhatsApp group. These are all questions that we cannot answer online, and I'll take this on that space. So thank you so very much, and good night to all of us. I want to shout out to all of you. Kofi, I know you said you came late, and we want to give a special shout out to Baba J, Dr. Leona Jefferson, who clocked 88. But that 88 is just this one. We know that Baba would clock and clock and clock and clock again, and he's doing very well. He's powerful as usual, and I can't wait to have him on the show. So one of the guests that you recommended that we must have on Pan-African Daily, Dr. Wade Nobles, I'm going to work on that to get him again. He's been long, it's really been a while that we didn't have him. We're also going to have the Dr. Obert T. Shaka, Professor Dr. Obert T. Shaka, is the backbone, exactly like Professor Dr. Wade Nobles, who are actually the scholars in the knowledge in the spectrum or in the sector of African spirituality, and also the healing process, how to deal with our traumas and healing. That's very, very key. I mean, these are big professors we can never even pay if we're attending their lectures, but on Pan-African Daily TV, they sacrifice to say we're giving back knowledge to heal and to build the Africa we want. So please, I'm going to go on that job right now to get Dr. Wade Nobles to be our guest, also to reach out to the Jeffries, and also to connect us with our past speakers that have not been able. Right now is the time where we don't do too much of politics. We just study our history. And the topic of this series with Professor James is actually going to be study your history, erase the mystery. All right. So we started last week. We concluded the chapter with Ghana and under Nkrumah. And next week, Tuesday, we're going to start Patrice Lumumba from Congo. And it's always going to be study your history, erase the mystery. So thank you so very much, people. Go out on right now and sign for your membership and join the movement and fund the movement like never before. Okay? Freedom and life. Freedom and life for the new Africa. So thank you so very much. And we see us on Thursday, 8 p.m. Central European Time. That's definitely 2 p.m., Eastern Standard Time. Now, what do you need to do tomorrow while I leave you to meet you again? Please make sure you go to Pan-African Daily TV, subscribe. Make sure you invite your families, your loved ones, your community to subscribe, because we're going on that routing to begin to call out our families, neighborhoods, communities. Let them subscribe on Pan-African Daily TV, like the videos, share the videos, okay? That's the simple thing that you can do while we're not live. But tomorrow, I think we can do a restream. Go again and watch the part 1 of the series of Study Your History. It will erase the mystery for those of you that missed it. And some of you came late today. I noticed that, okay? If you missed the first part where Professor James talked about Trump and his administration, we congratulated him. And also re-energize and strategize why we need to stay focused. You better not miss it. That's how we started the conversation today, if you joined the classes late. And then later on, he went on to celebrate and give us and read the last letter that Martin Luther King wrote to Kwame Nkrumah. These are the first conversations we started before you joined the class. So please, you better not miss it. Go back, Okay, as we finish the show, just go back and study it again over and over. You know, we don't waste time. It's 2 hours lessons, 2 or 3 hours, but it's what billions of your lifetime saving on Pan-African Daily is free. Is what intergenerational knowledge that you're passing on from generation to generation. Instead of just passing your time, it's just like watching a Netflix series for 2 hours. Go on Pan-African Daily TV, click the videos. We did more than 1,000, more than 2,000. Most of them were removed, but the ones that are there are very educative. And please learn this for free for yourself, and thank yourself for doing that. So thank you so very much. We see ourselves on Thursday. Peace and love, blessings. Please don't forget to drink water. Drink water enough. Dress warm for those of you that are, you know, and please protect yourself a lot. The energy and the snow doesn't just come without repercussions, okay? Make sure you really protect yourself when you're going out. So stay healthy, and we see us on Thursday. Bye-bye. Good night. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.